After an amazing day at Guédelon, we are heading into the Yonne department in the northwest corner of Burgundy to the ancient city of Chablis. It's hard to say what came first in Chablis, the wine or the city. The history of the region speaks of Romans planting vines to support the garrisons that were stationed there. The vines then came under the ownership of the peasantry making wine for daily life in the village. In the 12th century, the Cistercian monks from the Potini Abbey joined the Catholic Church mission for creating a viticulture region in Burgundy by planting Chardonnay grapes in the Yonne River Valley, which would eventually spread across Burgundy. The Yonne River Valley is located closer to the Champagne region than any other region of Burgundy, making it the third most northern vineyard in France behind Alsace and the Champagne region. Soil characteristics of clay, oyster shell, and chalk have the Chablis terroir more similar to the Aube area of Champagne than the distant Côte d'Or department of eastern Burgundy. And the wines produced in Chablis face similar challenges of a northern climate, lending acidity problems to the wines from spring frosts, heavy rains, and hot summers. The Yonne area was annexed from Champagne by the Dukes of Burgundy in the 1400s. Capitalizing on a natural monopoly of transportation afforded by the Yonne River, Chablis experienced its golden age during this era. Wine was easily shipped from Chablis via the Yonne River, joining the Seine River, delivering their Chardonnay directly to the markets of Paris. Records from the mid-15th century show the town has become very successful exporting wine through Paris to England, Flanders, and Northern Europe. Dutch traders especially loved the wine from France and were eager to export it far and wide across their trade routes. However, it would not be long before a disruptive technology would threaten the Catholic Church and send France into a series of religious civil wars to gain control of the French monarchy. Johann Gutenberg, a goldsmith in Mainz, Germany, created the first movable type letterpress, which is considered the most important technological breakthrough of the Middle Ages. The first Gutenberg Bibles were believed to have been printed in 1450, creating the industry of book publishing and the press. By 1480, the printing press had spread to cities throughout Europe, and book publishing was one of the main economic activities of the era. As the printing press spread, so did new translations of the Bible, opening the pages to the people who had always been relying on the Catholic Church to disseminate the scriptures. As people read, they began to question and threaten the power of the Catholic Church. This single technology empowered the reform movement that began in Czech Republic with Jan Hus, was carried on by Martin Luther in Germany, and later by John Calvin in France. In the early 1500s, King Henry VIII of England was denied an annulment from his first wife, Catherine of Aragon, by Pope Clement VII. The politics of England were then manipulated to end the right of appeal to Rome. Catherine was stripped of her title as queen, and her daughter Mary was declared as illegitimate. Anne Boleyn would become the new Queen of England, and her birth line the line of succession for the Kingdom of England. Francis I, King of France, was initially drawn to Martin Luther's theology and supported King Henry VIII's annulment. Later, Francis would be criticized for not being forceful with the growing Protestant movement and realized it was threatening his monarchy. He ordered Protestant activists to be burned in front of the Cathedral Notre Dame in Paris for the hanging of posters rejecting the Catholic doctrine of Christ being physically present in the communion sacraments. Persecutions continued, and before his death, he would censor printing presses and force John Calvin into exile in Switzerland. Francis was followed by his son Henry II, who would lead France for 12 years before dying from an infection following a jousting tournament. Before dying, Henry II of France declared and proclaimed his son Francis II and daughter-in-law Mary, Queen of the Scots, daughter of Catherine of Aragon, as King and Queen of England, siding with Rome and the Catholic Church over the line of succession for the throne of England. The Huguenots were the Protestant followers of John Calvin in France, whose numbers were on the rise during the mid-1500s. Louis de Bourbon, inspired by a Calvinist sermon, brought the politically popular House of Bourbon into the Huguenot movement. Mary's uncles, the Dukes of Guise, were opportunists, taking advantage of a chance to rule France through Francis II and Mary, Queen of the Scots. The reign of Francis II was tested in court and then confronted a failed conspiracy at the Chateau of Amboise to eradicate the House of Guise. The plot was discovered and led to the execution of over 100 conspirators. The stage was set and a full series of civil wars began between the Protestant House of Bourbon and the Catholic House of Guise, leaving the little village of Chablis to be razed by the Huguenots, not to recover until the 18th century. The wine of Chablis had become world famous in the Middle Ages, and the London markets were still eager for the Chardonnay produced in Chablis. The city slowly rebuilt itself, and the wine's popularity continued to revitalize the village and surrounding area, expanding the vineyards to nearly 100,000 acres in 1880. But disruption would return at the end of the 19th century with the linking of rail lines to Paris. Suddenly, Chablis faced stiff competition with cheaper wines undercutting Chablis' prices in the Paris markets. In addition to competition, the region would also suffer greatly from a mildew known as iridium, which destroyed the fruit at harvest. Increased speeds of transportation from the U.S. would lead to a disastrous importing of phylloxera, a bug that destroyed the roots of the French vines. The following two world wars would lay waste to the region, with 99% of the vineyards being lost by 1950. Between the world wars, the Appellation of Origin Control, AOC, was created for the Chablis terroir to protect the name Chablis for use only by the Chablis region vineyards producing wines with Chardonnay grapes. At this time, Chablis was the term being used to describe white wines of any grape variety produced anywhere in the world. The growing popularity of Chardonnay worldwide reopened prosperous world markets for Chablis, and a renaissance of the vineyards has steadily grown production to over 10,000 acres. The vineyards of Chablis are classified into 4 appellations, which include 7 Grand Cru vineyards and 40 Premier Cru vineyards, defined by the soil and slope characteristics of the terroir. 70% of the remaining land is the generic appellation of Chablis, which has the greatest amount of varietal options, followed by the lowest class, Petit Chablis, which is grown on the outlying lands of the appellation. Chablis became famous for its purity to the art of Chardonnay. The wines became characterized originally by the use of concrete tanks and later stainless steel during the vinification process. It is revered for its character of preventing corruption of the natural flavors created by the terroir against aromas created from aging in oak barrels.
We don't want to produce any oak juice, so only wine, okay? So Chablis is known to be very elegant and easy to drink. So of course I just would, Les Clos, for example, this is a wine which is naturally very strong with a long palate, a long finish, and that's wonderful for aging. So if I use some oaks for that, it's just to increase the quality of the wine, not to change anything to the style of the wine.
Yes.
Okay, so I use some new oak and I use some old oaks. And I'm trying to this setup to have a blend of different age of wood. And I think for a Chablis, the best wood for a Chablis is the 3-4 years old for the oak.
Chablis are known as being some of the longest living Chardonnay wines, with Grand Cru varieties aging well for 15 years and Premier Cru for 10 years.